let's just cancel Chinese New Year. I like it less and less every year because I don't want to interact with irrelevant people or hear insincere greetings. Year after year, it's exhausting. I just want to be alone, without trying to please or cater to anyone. I hate seeing those fake faces. When I was a child, New Year was filled with joy and familial love. Now it's all about comparisons and looking down on others.
For men, the approach of New Year is especially tough. How many people, like me, feel increasingly unwilling to celebrate? It's like facing a major exam. I have aging parents to care for, children to raise, and yet I can't complain to my wife or show exhaustion to my parents. I work hard, but I don't earn much, and I fail to properly take care of my family. All of this gets magnified as the new year approaches. Outwardly, I seem fine, but my pockets are empty. I was once a confident young man, but now, in middle age, I've had to bow my head. After a year of hustle and exhaustion, I hope to rest during New Year, but it ends up being even busier and more tiring. Visiting relatives means preparing gifts and handing out red envelopes, none of which can be skipped. Gatherings are nothing but competitions. Who got promoted, who made money, whose kid got into a good school. If you're doing well, others feel jealous. If you're not, you feel ashamed.
I no longer find any reason to enjoy New Year. We've lost the traditional virtues of Chinese culture. Is there even a festive atmosphere anymore? Fireworks, passed down through generations, are now banned. The excitement is gone. Worse, the warmth among people has disappeared. In the past, relatives and friends would gather for celebrations. Now people are cold and indifferent. Neighbors used to visit one another, but now doors are shut and everyone keeps to themselves.
Do you think celebrating New Year is still meaningful? It's not. Why? Because people have lost their warmth, and the New Year has lost its spirit. People have changed, and so has the New Year. In the past, when people were poor, they helped each other. When I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, New Year was full of joy. We stayed up all night visiting aunts and uncles who'd fill our pockets with snacks and candies. People were kind-hearted back then. Now, if you're doing better than someone else, they envy and resent you. You buy a new car for New Year, and they hate you for it. People's hearts have become so complicated. In the countryside, it may seem calm on the surface, but there's hidden conflict everywhere.
Hello everyone, and welcome to China Watch. The Chinese New Year of 2025 can be described as the most subdued and bleak since the establishment of the Chinese Communist regime. From the final days of the lunar calendar to the early days of the new year, shopping malls were quiet, streets were deserted, and markets were lifeless. Traditional New Year elements such as fireworks, red envelopes, and festive gifts were nowhere to be seen. Even modern ways of celebrating, like WeChat greetings and digital red envelopes, have faded into silence.
Take a look outside my building in Beijing, between the 2nd and 3rd ring roads. From New Year's Eve to the first day of the new year, it's eerily quiet. Almost no one is around, no festive vibe, no fireworks. It's more boring than the Spring Festival Gala. It's terrifyingly silent.
This is my first time spending New Year in Shanghai, and it's truly eye-opening. If I didn't know better, I'd think we were back under lockdown. The streets are deserted, not even a hint of red decorations. This New Year's theme seems to be cold and lifeless. The normally crowded subway is so empty you could dance in it. I'm puzzled, do people in Shanghai not visit relatives?
Everyone's saying tourist spots are packed during New Year. But look where I am, there's absolutely no one. Not a single person. It's quiet, peaceful, and honestly, I love it.
Have you noticed how the New Year spirit is fading? When I was a kid, I'd look forward to New Year all year because it meant no school, playing with friends, setting off firecrackers, and gathering with family to eat dumplings and watch the Spring Festival Gala. It was so much fun. But now, as an adult, I don't even want to celebrate. Why? Firecrackers are banned, the gala is boring, and my wallet is emptier than my face. What's the point of going home for New Year? It's just meaningless.
Whether in bustling first and second-tier cities or small towns across the country, people lamented the loss of the festive spirit, the decline in human connection, and the absence of wealth as their pockets emptied. With China's economy continuing to decline, young people facing unemployment, the middle class collapsing, and the wealthy emigrating, the holiday atmosphere has been replaced by the harsh reality of financial pressure. Many not only failed to feel the joy of the new year, but even experienced a new kind of New Year anxiety, reluctant to celebrate at all. Let's take a look at the mindset of people across different age groups during this Chinese New Year. Elderly people were particularly sentimental about the new year in 2025.
Spring Festival today is incomparable to the past. What kind of new year is this? It used to be lively despite material scarcity. People cleaned and wore old clothes that still looked festive. Now, even in new clothes, people's moods are different. Fireworks and celebrations are banned. What's left to celebrate? When I was a kid, even with limited resources, New Year felt vibrant. Today, we're afraid to eat anything because of food safety concerns. Business people are ruthless, but the ones who suffer are ordinary people. How can we feel joyful in such times? For me, New Year means sleeping through the day. Now we don't have many relatives. We haven't even moved yet, but we're already having conflicts. Some of the people who have been relocated have gone to court. Do you think you still have relatives?
Relationships have grown increasingly cold due to societal factors and family issues like housing disputes. Brothers and sisters fall out, often ending up in court. Since welfare housing ended in the 90s, relocation disputes have become common, tearing families apart. In the past, there was welfare housing to offer, so it didn't matter. Now there is no welfare housing, it has been gone since 1994, so it is relocation, and everyone is arguing over some welfare.
Generally, when parents are alive, brothers and sisters get together. When parents are gone, brothers and sisters who are good to each other get together. Some have conflicts, some brothers and sisters don't get along. Why do they get together? It's because of a house, for the distribution of parents' inheritance, etc. Sometimes the elder one likes the second son, and he gives everything to the second son, then the elder son is not happy, and the younger one is not happy, so they don't associate with you. If there is a conflict, they will not associate with you. That's how it is. People are all for their own interests, and they are all selfish.
There are too many pre-prepared dishes in restaurants. They are all pre-prepared dishes. I don't want to eat them. You know about pre-prepared dishes. Where do you think they come from? Are they hygienic? Do you think the Spring Festival Gala is worth watching? Basically, I didn't watch it. I watched it for a while and then stopped. We don't think this program is good. It didn't attract us. You should know that many people are relocated now. When they are relocated, many families have internal conflicts. It's because of money. When there are disagreements and conflicts in the family, they don't communicate with each other anymore. I ignore you and you ignore me. I think it's better not to visit relatives. Why do you visit them? There's nothing to do. I come to your house to eat leftovers and I go to his house to eat the same things. The food cooked at my home is much better than theirs. I tell you, I have eaten food from many places now and I think the food at my home is the best. I am most satisfied with what my wife cooks. The dishes served are always steaming hot.
During the Spring Festival, if you ask people living in many first-tier cities, they feel very lonely and desolate. That is to say, the connotation of this festival is gone. In theory, I don't care how many people there are, this is my own festival, so we can celebrate it in our own way. But the problem is that the connotations of our past spring festivals, including our mental state and our cultural heritage, are gone. If you ask people more than 10 years ago, more than 20 years ago, and more than 30 years ago, you can divide them into several stages and ask them what kind of expectations people had for the Spring Festival at that time, and what position the Spring Festival held in their hearts. Now, if you look and ask, do you still have such expectations and such a position? So, you know the New Year atmosphere is not there, let alone whether it is strong or not.
Middle-aged individuals showed little enthusiasm for the celebration, saying, "People have become pragmatic. There's no friendship without benefit. Good health is the greatest blessing. Without money, the new year becomes a source of fear."
I left home early on the third day of the Chinese New Year and returned to the city where I work. Actually, I haven't started working yet. but I just don't want to stay at home. After I turned 35, I became very withdrawn and closed myself off from others. Some insignificant people or unfamiliar people, the so-called socializing and communication, are actually just consuming myself in the end. Another main reason is that it is very realistic, right? If you can't provide any value to others, then others don't want to play with you. The world of human beings is like this, plain and simple. I think good health is the greatest blessing.
I really don't know what the meaning of Chinese New Year is for middle-aged people. A holiday. A holiday that is more tiring than working. A gathering, friends and relatives who we don't usually contact. Maybe it's just a family reunion, and the traffic jam will make our legs cramp. In the cold winter, returning home in the wind and snow at night, I don't want to celebrate the Chinese New Year.
What kind of New Year is this? I have been looking for a bank for the mortgage this year, and the 4S shop for the car loan has called several times. There are also air conditioning fees, heating fees, coal fees, property fees, security fees, and fire fees for our family. You haven't made any money this year. So middle-aged people are afraid of the new year. I said that when I was young, my father said he was afraid of the new year, and I didn't understand it at that time. When one day I became a father and became a middle-aged man in my 40s, I realized that it was really the case. I was also afraid of the new year. Why? All the money earned this year was spent in a rush in the 12th month. And it was spent all at once on New Year's Eve. It was a lump sum withdrawal. Isn't it, friends? The footsteps of the new year are getting closer and closer, and the psychological pressure on us middle-aged people is getting greater and greater.
Young people, more than anyone else, feel the weight of anxiety and dread. They dislike being questioned during family gatherings and, after a year of drifting and uncertainty, just want to lie down and rest at home during the holidays.
This year's Spring Festival is really cold, but no matter how cold it is, people's relations are colder. The flavor of the new year is getting weaker and weaker this year. In previous years, setting off firecrackers before dinner would immediately bring the flavor of the new year, but this year, no matter how many firecrackers are set off, there is no such feeling. People's living standards are not keeping up, and they don't gather together after the holidays. They stay at home and don't go out, discussing how this person is doing and how that person is doing. When I was a child, when I went to a neighbor's house, you could fill your pockets with melon seeds and candies, and they sincerely hoped that you were doing well. Now, buying a new car will cause jealousy. Life is getting better and better, but the gap between the rich and the poor is getting bigger and bigger.
I am afraid of the Chinese New Year, not because I hate holidays, but because I hate dealing with interpersonal relationships. I don't want to be forced to socialize, forced to visit relatives, forced to eat at banquets, forced to fake smiles and act. Every time I am forced to visit relatives' homes to pay New Year's greetings and eat, I drag my tired body and empty soul back home. When I feel that I have been abused and want to die, I find that there is still a large table of relatives at home. The first thing they say is that it is for your own good. The third sentence is inseparable from money. The fourth sentence is about marriage. The fifth sentence is about saving. The sixth sentence is about being sensible. The seventh sentence is that it is not easy to raise you. The eighth sentence is that you look at other people's families. The ninth sentence is that you have to strive for excellence. You can't complain, you can't say you are tired, you can't talk about feelings, you can't talk about gossip. Now I am the kind of person who is more afraid of the Chinese New Year than pigs. At the end of each year, as the Spring Festival approaches, my irritability value will climb to a peak. I often suspect that I am sick, because the Chinese New Year always gives me a sense of oppression that I must be happy and happy. If I am unhappy and don't socialize, I am not sociable and don't understand the ways of the world. So this matter is like a tribulation for me. Growing up, I have never experienced the happy family reunion atmosphere of the New Year on TV. Because my parents always quarreled during the new year, regardless of the time and place, and I am caught in the middle. When relatives come, I have to cooperate with them to play the role of a loving family. It's annoying. I hate the new year.
I bet that many people will not celebrate the Chinese New Year starting next year. I have been working in the loan business in Hefei for many years. This year's debt collection wave is really outrageous, and the number of people in debt is exploding. Because many debts are settled at the end of the year, it is a headache, and many people don't even want to go home.
I was poor and well off outside, and no one knew about it, but I had to go home for the new year. When I think about the new year, I am more scared than a pig. A pig is afraid of losing its life, but I am afraid of being penniless. A pig is afraid of this only once in its life, but I am afraid every year. When I think about the new year, when I was a child, I asked about grades. When I grew up, I asked about income. I compared whose house was bigger and whose car was better. Other children never lost, but I never won.
I didn't visit any relatives during the Spring Festival this year. I feel that visiting relatives during the Spring Festival now is really different from before. When I was a child, I would visit my aunts and uncles every 2 or 3 days, and then stay overnight and have dinner there. Now it feels like it's just a formality. I drive to 4 or 5 relatives a day who I don't contact or see very often in a year, and then forget about it and give them some gifts. I think it's meaningless. Maybe we young people don't care about this anymore. I think that starting from my generation, the relationship between relatives may become much more indifferent.
How many people are like me, who just don't want to celebrate the Chinese New Year, especially this year? I was sitting here just now and wondering why. It has nothing to do with whether the past year was dull or exciting, and it has nothing to do with the future. When I was packing my things just now, I suddenly thought of the high-intensity social activities I would have to do in the next few days, and I would have to face thousands of questions from relatives and friends, which would be very exhausting. The Chinese New Year is a time for rest and vacation, but this makes the entire holiday very tiring and makes the Chinese New Year feel like a test.
Have you noticed a strange problem? Even the barbershops were empty during the Chinese New Year this year. Many barbershops were waiting to make some money during the Chinese New Year, but now there is no one. Even if consumption is downgraded, you still have to get your hair cut. There are also people who say that the internet will replace physical stores, but you can't get your hair cut online, you have to go to a physical store anyway. And you still have to get your hair cut, you can't just let it grow forever, right? But it's strange that there are really few people in the barbershops this year.
As China's economy continues to decline, people's lives are becoming increasingly constrained. Many chose to stay home, avoiding unnecessary outings and refraining from spending. Ironically, the only places bustling with people this new year were temples. Under the pressure of economic hardship and the authoritarian regime, many Chinese people turned to temples, incense burning, and prayers, hoping for divine protection and relief from their struggles. On the morning of New Year's Day, by 7 a.m., over 40,000 people had made reservations to visit Beijing's Yonghe Temple, with some waiting nearly 10 hours in sub-zero temperatures to offer the year's first incense. At Hangzhou's Lingyin Temple, the crowds were so overwhelming that reports of lost IDs, lost wives, and even lost children were common. In recent years, Chinese society has entered an era of low desire and frozen savings. Rising unemployment, factory closures, company layoffs, and salary cuts for civil servants have turned what was once a lively celebration into a dreaded and lonely time of year. Looking ahead to 2026, the ongoing trade war with U.S. is likely to further worsen China's economic situation, making consumption downgrades the new norm for future Chinese New Year celebrations. That's all for this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe.